afternoon, class. My name is Erica Cheever, and this is Dr. Tobin's research class. The name of my research project is the feasibility of DNA recovery from various substrates following gelatin lifter collection of latent fingerprints. Question and objectives. Can a BVDA Gel Lifter lift fingerprints and DNA simultaneously? The purpose of this research will be to examine the viability of DNA recovery, lowering the use of a gelatin lifter. So, the purpose of my research is to test to see if DNA and fingerprints can be lifted together at the same time. This will help analysts in the lab cut down a lot of time when trying to figure out someone's identity, because they'll have both DNA and fingerprints at the same time. How do gel lifters contribute to forensic science? The significance of this study will be to help analysts in determining someone's identity concurrently by using both DNA and fingerprints. So this gel lifter can do a lot. It can help lift your DNA and your fingerprint. And it can save a lot of time in a lab. The BVDA gel scanner is also a tool in helping this because we can see the fingerprint on the screen. So, what are BVDA gel lifters? Gel lifters are considered a higher class latex with a gelatin-made layer. These gel lifters can lift fingerprints and shoe prints from porous and non-porous surfaces. So this gel lifter is black, and it pretty much can just go on any type of surface: wood, plastic, cardboard, duct tape, anything like that. A shoe, and you just throw it on the surface, stick it on the surface, and it'll collect a fingerprint, a shoe print, DNA. Now, once you lift a print, you have to put it into the gel lifter scanner. The scanner takes images of what's on the gel lifter, and it shows up on this huge computer screen. Okay. Now, the gel lifter itself is really flexible, and it can go on many types of things. So if you have a pen like this, you can just wrap it around and collect the fingerprint. In my case, it'll be pretty easy because the volunteers will place their fingerprint on a surface, and I'm gonna put a little dot there so I can know exactly where the fingerprint was placed. I'll stick the gel lifter on that surface substrate, and it'll hopefully lift the fingerprint. So I'm going to come closer so you can see what the gelatin lifter looks like. It's like this, and it bends. They come really, really large, and you can cut it to form a small piece or a big piece, and you stick it on the surface. Once you stick it on the surface, you peel it off, and you stick it into the gel lifter scanner. Okay. The methodology. DNA and fingerprints will be collected from volunteers at the Department of Forensic Science. So there will be about a total of 14 volunteers, and each volunteer, of course, will be given consent forms. Once the consent forms are signed by the volunteers, I will then have them come into the lab at a certain time, and I'll take their DNA by doing a swab of their mouths. So I'm using volunteers at the Department of Forensic Sciences in Washington, D.C. That's where I intern at. And there's a lot of security in the building. So it's really hard for outside people to get in. So it's just best to use people that work at the lab. So once I get those volunteers, they'll give me a DNA swab and we'll go from there. The volunteers will come into the lab and place their fingerprints over a variety of surface substrates, as well as contributing a known DNA sample and known prints. So this is where the volunteers come in, and I'll have 8 different substrates. I'll have glass, cardboard, wood, paper, plastic, marble, duct tape, and metal. Now the duct tape that I'm using is really thick. It's really thick duct tape. And I'm going to use the silver side, and we're going to see if we can get fingerprints off of that. That's rarely done, so that's going to be interesting to see. Once the prints and maybe DNA have been laid over the substrates, a gel lifter will be placed over top of the surfaces in the attempt to collect DNA and fingerprints. So once the volunteers place their fingerprints on the substrate, I'll then use a marker and I'll place a dot where the fingerprint was laid, and that's where the gelatin lifter will come in, and I'll stick it on, I'll peel it back, and I'll stick it on the surface substrate. And hopefully the volunteers will also be sweating and hair will be falling everywhere, so I can collect some type of DNA. So once I use my gel lifter, I will then place it into the BVDA Gel Lifter scanner. The scanner will read the lifter, and hopefully a beautiful fingerprint will appear on the screen. Once I see that fingerprint, I'll then take the gel lifter and I'll swab it for DNA, praying and hoping that it'll be DNA on these substrates. So hopefully I'll see which one contains the most. Okay, so once the attempt to lift fingerprints and DNA has been completed, the gel lifter will be scanned and images of the impression evidence will be captured. So that's where we'll see the beautiful image of the fingerprint, and we can then move on and swab this gel lifter for DNA. Following the scan, the original substrate and the gel lifter will be individually swabbed to collect DNA from the 2 surfaces, and the swabs will be tested to uncover any possible DNA profiles. So this is where our known sample of DNA comes into play. We'll use both the known sample and the sample that we've taken with the gel lifter, and we'll compare the 2. So we'll get probably a DNA analyst to come in and view the substrates and with the DNA, you know, what was collected from the gel lifter. Hopefully it was a lot of DNA, and we'll see if which surface substrate contained the most DNA. And that's when I'll get my results, and I'll be able to tell everyone which substrate contained the most DNA. So that's when an examiner will conclude what the results are, and the data will be recorded. So that's when the DNA analyst will come in and, see what's going on and see if there is DNA on any of the surface substrates that was lifted from the gel lifter. Okay, so like I said, my project will be done at the Department of Forensic Sciences in Washington, D.C. My mentor is Jason Kalowski, who is a professor here at Stevenson University, but he's also a lab director at the Department of Forensic Sciences. I will not have a budget. If I did have to pay out of pocket, everything may cost about $300, but luckily the Department of Forensic Sciences is providing my tools needed to perform my research. And Dr. Kalowski, he's helping me with my substrate. So, yes. So if you have any questions, you can email me at echeever@stevenson.edu if you have any questions about my project, and I will respond to you as soon as I get them. All right. Thank you, and have a nice day.